In today's video, I'm going to show you 3 conditioning routines you could use as alternatives to running. Yo, what's a crack? By Happy Face Pullers, your host T-Talks. Today is all about 3 low-impact cardio routines. Why is this relevant to you, you might be wondering? Well, the act of running is in itself a physical activity that imposes enormous levels of stress on the tendons, ligaments, and joints in the lower body thousands of times within a relatively short period. This is not a judgment on whether running is good or bad. It's simply a description of what happens when you go for a run. Whether this activity is appropriate for you depends on your level of fitness and injury history for the most part. The last thing I'd like to point out before we jump into the routines is that these cardio sessions are low intensity in nature. So you're not supposed to finish on the floor panting for your life. The goal is to perform basic movements for time domains that go beyond 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes or even longer. And lastly, let me remind you that the vast majority of the population seeking to maximize longevity and health should do both strength and conditioning training on a regular basis. Alright, the first routine is a complex of 3 basic exercises that will be performed back to back without taking any rest if possible. For the first movement, find a solid elevated surface you can step on, ideally something at knee height or above. I'm using a storage trunk here, but feel free to use whatever you have available in your house, like a chair or your own couch. Once you complete the step-ups, you're going to move on to alternating reverse lunges. Just try to be consistent with your repetitions and make sure that your knee taps the ground as a way to keep yourself accountable for taking the movement through its full range of motion. To get the most out of these 2 first exercises, you want to use your arms as if you were running. Many people still forget about their arms because they regard these 2 movements as leg only, which is a very narrow way to look at them. Simultaneous and synchronized arm movement helps us propel ourselves forward. Moreover, when you remove what I call the handle cheat, your body has to call upon many muscles in your midsection to stabilize your stance. The first 2 exercises are unilateral movements that prioritize one leg over the other to complete a repetition. But at the end, you are going to finish off this session with a classic bilateral exercise that is going to stress both legs simultaneously. Bodyweight squats. You'll be doubling the number of repetitions in every subsequent exercise. I like this system because of 3 simple reasons. First, it's adjustable. Second, it is easy to remember. And third, it's also a simple way to increase the total working volume. Be mindful of your range of motion. Make sure that you squat down as low as your mobility allows, but ideally you would want to take your hips below your knee line. This will ensure that you are using your hip extensors in the most challenging angle of the squat and that your hamstrings and glutes get recruited when you come out of the bottom. Here I'm demonstrating an example whereby I'm doing a 30, 60, 120 formula. This could be many repetitions for someone who is relatively new to train, so feel free to scale back the total volume to your individual level. The second routine is another simple yet effective complex of 3 basic movements: bodyweight squats, push-ups, and get-ups. The last exercise corresponds to the transition phase from the push-up plank to a standing position. There is nothing fancy about it, but it will chip away at your energy levels as you get deep into the routine. So the sequence of this cardio routine is pretty straightforward. The number of air squats remain the same throughout, but the amount of push-ups plus get-ups increase in a ladder fashion. The key here is to keep moving to make sure that your heart rate remains elevated for a long period. At the same time, you're also working the muscular endurance of your entire body. Many trainees will get a tremendous value out of this conditioning blast. When performed correctly and with full range of motion, beginners can manage to accumulate large volumes of push-ups in a single cardio session. The sequence of this routine mitigates the lack of strength in the upper body by breaking down push-ups individually. You never do 2 push-ups in a row. Every single repetition is followed by a get-up, which will give your upper body enough time to rest. However, you're slowly but surely accumulating repetitions over time. The push-up is one of the most effective bodyweight exercises to build foundational upper body strength. But what people usually fail to see is that the push-up is an exercise that requires a high level of tension throughout the entire body, especially the midsection. Think of the push-up as a moving plank. If performing regular push-ups with full range of motion is a clear obstacle for you to go beyond, let's say, level 3 or 4 in this routine, then I would recommend 2 things. 1. Use the knee-assisted regression for this workout. And 2. Moving forward, make sure to prioritize push-up training in your program to become better at them. Given the low-impact nature of this video, it makes sense to do strict push-ups plus get-ups instead of the dreaded burpee. As good as the latter exercise is for general physical preparedness and conditioning, I want to eliminate any pounding. So no thrusting ourselves onto the floor or landing on our feet after a jump. Do not get sloppy on your form. Anchor your feet to the floor and push against it through your heels. For the purpose of this video, I'm demonstrating the routine going up to level 12 so that you guys and girls get an idea of what the routine looks like. But if you have the stamina and time for it, go after the highest number you can reach. The last routine I'm bringing you today is for those of you who have a pair of dumbbells at home, which is all the equipment you need to give yourself a full body conditioning session. The thruster is the only exercise you're going to be doing, although technically a thruster is a combination of 2 movements, a squat and a press. And yes, as you might already have noticed, I am pushing very hard for people to squat more frequently. The pressing part of the thruster allows you to train a push type of movement in a vertical line as opposed to the push-up where the pressing is done in a horizontal direction. Another major difference between the two is that you are pressing 2 external objects during the press, meaning that your arms are not connected to a fixed object or a surface, and thus they are moving independently from one another. This is going to require much more stabilization from the musculature of your arms and shoulders. In the spirit of keeping things simple, you're going to use a pyramid structure to determine the workload in each set. This is great for those of you who need some acclimation time to ease into training. Instead of going all out from the get-go, you're gonna make things harder on you in small increments. But don't be fooled by the seemingly easy starts. Repetitions will compound fast. Make the most of the small breaks that are given to you to catch your breath. Once you've reached the peak level, the volume will slowly decrease. However, by this point you'll be breathing pretty hard, so you have to manage your cardiovascular fatigue. Focus on moving down the ladder and think that the worst is already behind you. In this video I'm demonstrating what a 10-round pyramid looks like, but feel free to adjust the intensity to your level. But if you're a more advanced trainee and you want to turn this routine into a cardiovascular challenge, go ahead and extend the peak number to over 20.